14 lakh workforce that you provide. Yes, our members, 110 members together, provide to various industries. Now, what could these industries be? We are providing workforce to manufacturing. So, in manufacturing, it could be assembly line worker, it could be a loader operation, unloading operation, quality assurance, picker packers, the real blue collar. We are providing staff to the logistics industry, transportation industry, the delivery segment, and all the various other e-commerce and logistics companies that you can think of, and transportation companies you can think of. We are providing workforce to BPOs and KPOs, which is also known as ITES in our country. We also provide workforce to the IT segment, which is the white collar knowledge workers who could be in data analytics and data sciences. They could be in AI and ML. They could be in cloud. They could be in cyber security and various such requirements. We provide workforce to the banking sector, BFSI industry जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं, banking, financial services, insurance, that segment. We provide the workforce to retail industry. In retail, again, you have the frontline workforce, which is sales, which interacts with final consumers, and you have backend, which handles the supply chain, which handles the warehousing and all of the other things. We also provide workforce to the telecom industry, and telecom is a big backbone to this country as well. We also provide workforce to the various other, what we recently in India started understanding and calling as startups. Young startups, young organizations which are starting to become large. We also provide workforce to that. So our workforce that Indian Staffing Federation provides spans from minimum wage and can go right up to even a lakh and a half per month of wages and compensations to these people. But the common denominator across all of this is we provide decent work. That's the first thing. Indian Staffing Federation is also a member of the World Employment Confederation, WEC, which is a body that represents all international large employers and large countries worldwide which have flexi staffing. Along with decent work, we provide social security and inclusion. जो मैंने 1.4 million या 14 lakh workforce की बात की, we provide social security to each one of them. That means they get their PF, their benefits, their ESIC, their gratuity, their maternity if that event happens, and all such benefits which are applicable as per law. We provide offer and appointment letters to people. We provide them identity, which is an identity card and a assignment letter and an appointment letter. And all of this is as per the both the state as well as the union legislations. Many of our member companies, you would find them working in the whole country. So they will have customers right from Jammu and Kashmir to Kerala, right from Northeast to Rajasthan. And some of our companies, and Yadavji's company is one such example, and Pramod's also. Many of them have used Kolkata as their headquarters as well, and they work out of West Bengal and out of Kolkata as well. So this is what Indian Staffing Federation does. During COVID, सबके जहन में ये एक सवाल था regarding their own jobs, their own employment. We also slowed down from an industry which was growing between 12 to 16% year on year. We declined to as low as 3.6%. However, after that, we have last year clocked a massive growth of 21.9% year on year. And currently, we are underrating at a growth of nearly 16%. Mind you, at this growth rate, it's almost like adding 2 lakh new workers. And when I use the word 2 lakh new workers, I'm talking about net addition, because in our industry there's attrition and then we backfill. So we are talking about growth as in total people who have been added minus the people who have left the workforce. We talk about only the net addition, and that net addition that we are doing is almost 2 lakh a year as an industry. Another important point I will want to highlight here is that formalization is very important in our country in many ways. Formal means you get a decent work, you get formal wages and formal work, you get social security, you get benefits, you get skilling on the job, and then you get benefits and enhancement in increments. Under formalization, the best data point to see is how many people came to the workforce through our companies for the first time and got a UAN number or an EPFO number for the first time. On an average, for every two workers that we bring, one worker, nearly 50% is coming to EPFO and UAN for the very first time. That means we are also, as Indian Staffing Federation, a stepping stone to formalization. People from informal employment or young youth at the age of 18 for the first time comes to the staffing federation and the staffing industry, post which after few years of getting skills and enhancing upwards, they automatically then look at either getting absorbed by the customer on higher positions, higher roles, or they move on and start their own enterprise. So I will pause. If Yadavji and Pramod here want to add a few points, would love for them to add. We want to keep this as interactive as possible, so we would also request and wish if any one of you has any questions, you could kindly introduce yourself.
How you
and-
recruit?
Haji.
How you recruit the people?
So recruitment for the Indian Staffing Federation are multiple channels, and Pramod, please do come in.
So,
Yeah. So if you look at the multiple channels, one obviously is the standard channel which is available to everybody, which is called the database. Today, databases of two types. There's the large database. There are big companies which are in this business of employment database, and then there is a lot of new platforms which have started creating database for specific cohorts or skill sets. So that is one. Second is we get a lot of references. Like I mentioned, we are 1.4 million worker army already. We get references from these 1.4 million for their friends, their families, and every staffing company creates that what is called the internal database through that reference. The third, which is a very encouraging sign in our country in the last couple of years, irrespective of which government you are, doesn't matter आप किस party को belong करते हो, development as an agenda and jobs as an agenda has now become common. Every government has to fight elections at least on these two practices. There may be a third, fourth, fifth element, but these two are common. Every state government during COVID has started bringing that data in one box or in one platform. And we have access as Indian Staffing Federation to that also. One of the common ones at a national level is called National Career Services, NCS portal, which the government had and has. And like that, the state governments also have their own specific portals from where they allow companies like us to access the data and post jobs on that. Yadavji and Pramod, if you want to add and explain a little more about this.
if you do a rewind about 15 years back, there was employment exchanges everywhere, and
Yeah.
now it's the platform. So these platforms are the employment exchanges of this thing. Apart from that, I think we also have a large ecosystem of skilling which is happening in the country. I think skilling continues to give almost about a million or a million, maybe more, about close to maybe 2 million people across all government schemes. I think that also is an enabler for us to get talent. I think that's something that all of our staffing federation companies pick up that. And the skilling framework that we have is across multiple industries, which is helpful for us to go and talk to our customers in the retail, e-commerce, or whichever industries we represent. I think that happens to be another source.
Can I add something, new thing? See, beside what Rohit and Pramod says, that see, traditionally the recruitment means we were using either a job portal or employment exchange database or the referrals. But I think what one unique thing which our industry does is also the recruitment on the field. On the field, when we talk about, our recruiter goes into the club, it goes to various panchayat area, it goes to the village also, nearby cities, if the mafsal areas is there, contact the local people, the club and the local MLA, and get the people from there. There are also examples in a truck and truck people comes and bring here, do the interview, and take them into the factory. So this is a unique thing which our association has.
And what are the districts that you are working in West Bengal? Like you have similar procedure functioning in West Bengal?
See, madam, what happens, it all depends upon the type of requirement. For example, let's say that if there is a company and there is a factory and you require welders in the factory, you require, let's say, 100 welders in the factory. So you need to understand that where is the welder institute is there, welding institute is there. Suppose the welding institute is in Behram. So our field staff will connect with the Behrampur and bring the people here for the job here. It also happens sometime that we organize them to get house here, get settled here. If some skilling is required, then get upskill them and get the job. So these are the very new initiative which our association.
And regarding, you mentioned that you have 1.4 million workforce, that is nationally, or you have global presence, it is international?
Data full national. This
National.
is the data of the
Uh-huh.
national. Yes, 1.4 million is the data national.
And as you said, you have a presence of 10 years. So, what is the response and what are the industries you are working for Bengal? I mean, are people going outside?
So, very good question. I think 5 or 6 years ago, we had done a mega survey which lasted between the year 2016 2018. That time, we said that the flexi staffing penetration in India was close to 0.5 to 0.6%. What that means is for every 100 employees hired by a corporate, employees on outsourcing company roles like ours at Indian Staffing Federation was half an employee or 0.6%. In the last 5 years, that has actually galloped. It has already come closer to zero point 0.9 to 0.95. Now, interestingly, that difference in percentage doesn't look much, zero point 0.6 going to zero point 0.9 or 0.95, but it's a 50% percent growth on a large base because India has more than 500 million people in the workforce population. So, the growing respect towards staffing, both by the job giver as well as by the job seeker, that has started to increase, and we are very glad. Earlier, many decades ago, you would remember the prakriya or pratha was this is a contractor, and the contractor has a certain way or a certain style of functioning. Today, that's why I started by saying that we give decent work, we meet all the social norms and obligations, and we provide clarity what we give to them. The second, just one second. The second aspect is that because, like Pramod mentioned and Yadavji also mentioned, people who come to work with us are also getting skilled on the job by the staffing company as well as by the principal employer. So, as a benefit, what they get is they also not just get job for today, but they get an aspiration and a growth for tomorrow, and they start to find that their future is becoming better. Coming back to the point of what all industries, like I mentioned at the start, we cover all industries: manufacturing, BFSI, retail, telecom, consumer space, fintech, startups, logistics and e-commerce and delivery, every segment that you can think of. Today, you'd be amazed to know some of our member companies would be providing staff to even the likes of an ISRO for a project Gaganyaan for 2025 and 26. So that level of managed services and outsourcing has also started to happen, where in the most sensitive projects also the customer understands that sometimes an outsourced staff is very integral and very key. So that's the landscape. I'm sorry, you had a question.
Globally there is a environment of a recession-like environment, and we see that big companies like Microsoft, Google, they are doing retrenchment. In India also, Google India has sacked 500 employees. So this in this scenario, so your industry, particularly you are due to the flexi staffing, that is going to be hit by 2023, or what is your view?
Projections also.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, a couple of points I'd like to explain here. One, if we take the so-called downsizing itself, I think what has happened after 2020. So, in 2020, the minute that COVID came worldwide and lockdown started happening, all corporates got scared of literally survival. So the first 6 months was किसी तरीके से survive करना है. Everybody cut cost, everybody cut employment, everybody cut any sort of travel, any sort of expenditure or whatever. That's how the first 6 months was. After that, people realized that it's not a survival issue. Actually, corporates and the fitter corporates will stay. Somewhere, IT took a huge leap, massively. It became almost transformational because earlier we only spoke about work from home. Now work from home became a reality for everyone. So companies had to spend more in information technology than they have ever done in the last couple of decades. थोड़ा बहुत FOMO भी हो गया, fear of missing out. Every large corporate started thinking, oh, if the other guy is going and hiring 1,000 people and I'm not hiring, I may miss the bus. I may not get the best talent in future. My customers will ramp up as COVID will end. I will need thousands of people.
Now
Let me
it
hire.
is sort of right sizing.
Right sizing, absolutely. Perfect word that you've used. So everybody overleaped the other person and started hiring more in anticipation of this demand. And people also somewhere felt that money will remain as cheap as it had become. In some countries it was negative, in some countries it was zero. तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, आपको पैसा मिलता रहेगा, आप उस पैसे को खर्च करते रहेंगे. The equilibrium has reset itself. The equilibrium on one side told you you have overheated yourself on cost. On the other side, revenue has not caught up with that. Interesting data point is not to reflect on how many thousands these large companies are asking to go, to reflect on where were these companies 3 years ago. And what you'll realize is they've actually grown more than 100% in employment in just 3 years, but they're letting go of only 10%. So even after letting go of 10%, they're actually number one, they're 90% higher than where they were in pre-COVID. That's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing, and a more specific to the Indian environment, I think in spite of the fact of the rising interest rate in India also, we are all seeing it right now. India did not give free money to people. Barring few sectors जहाँ पे direct benefit transfers and all state governments or union government did, there was not too much of free money which was floating around in the population. The population was resilient enough to survive on the economics of the day. And today, we are still confident that India will deliver at least over 6% GDP. Somebody might say 6.5, somebody will say 7. I was looking at the data today only, we were talking about in our conference. Your state here in West Bengal, 12.8% GDP growth. So, in a scenario like that, you can pause for some time and say, okay, let me right size my organization and not increase cost. But if you're growing that much, you will have to add people. And the third data point, staffing industry in many ways is like a is it enables organizations also to plan for the bad times. In a good time, what happens is every employee you can have is permanent, because it's not about that you have a fear of letting go of the employee, but the biggest fear you have is if I hire all the thousands of people as a permanent employee, after 3 years those employees will have aspirations. मैं कितने लोगों को मैनेजर बना सकता हूँ, कितने लोगों को वाइस प्रेसिडेंट बना सकता हूँ. In the staffing industry, what happens is where you see that the person is going to reach a certain level and they are best suited for that job is best outsourced to us. And that's where, if you will notice, a lot of our hiring, while we, as per data, you will notice we also work within the IT and the ITS industry. But 90% of our workforce, even today, is in the general staffing or the general skills, as we call it, in the front line of the economy. So, yes, a month or a quarter may be bad, a month or a quarter may be slow, but Indian Staffing Federation is not looking at 1 or 2 quarters. We are, as an industry federation, we are looking at 10 years, 20 years and 30 years, and that's where we are part of the whole nation building.
And what is your this year's projection? And I want to get a clarification. Like, for example, I'm with Times of India.
Right.
Our security segment is outsourced.
That's right.
So you function as a middle umbrella segment between the corporate and the people who are being staffed. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct. While Indian Staffing Federation has always focused on IT and general skills for what we call as staffing, of late, in the last 2 years, we have also become a voice for security, for facility management, and the others. So today, our member companies, if you look at them, they provide outsourced talent for IT, they provide outsourced talent for non-IT, they provide security workers for security. Obviously, there's a separate license for it. You need a Prasara license to operate as a security agency. And they also provide talent for facility management, which is the janitors, pantry boys, HVACs, managing all your electrical maintenance, managing your gen sets and all. The easiest way to understand Indian Staffing Federation or its members is anything which is core to an organization that the organization does itself. anything which is non-core, whether it is food services, facility management services, security services, uh, sales and distribution management, any loading unloading activities, any assembly line operations, picking packing equipment and all of these can be then happily outsourced. And like Pramod and Yadav ji were explaining, our support to them is to mobilize the staff, because like you rightly said, हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में लोग देने हैं ना, सिर्फ एक कोलकाता में तो नहीं देने या एक न्यू दिल्ली में तो नहीं देने. So we have to mobilize the staff, we have to do their onboarding process, we have to complete their bank account formalities, we have to complete their social security formalities, we have to ensure their timely wages, payroll and everything is run, their compliances are done, taxes are paid, which is GST and the others and all. ये सब काम एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आउटसोर्स कर देती है और फोकस करती है अपने कोर बिजनेस पे. लाइक यू विल फोकस ऑन जर्नलिज्म, न्यूज एज योर core business, but you will not have to bother about this paraphernalia. So that's where we come in as an aggregator.
Sir, one thing.
Yeah, please.
That from the unorganized that contractor resign to we have shifted to this organized ISF. So regarding the recruitment of these flexi staffs, so it's a very good thing, and many people will not be exploited by the contractors and all those people. But one question I want to ask to you, that it is a flexi job, but there is no permanency in the job. So when a candidate is being sacked after a right tenure of recruitment, so do you any kind of re-recruitment of that candidate to offer him a alternative placement so that he can survive? Because as he is working, so he has a family to support. Suddenly he is getting a pink slip. So do you have any kind of that
So very,
planning?
very good question. And I think here, other than Yadav ji, who probably has a permanent job, none of us sitting on this table by the way have a permanent job. I may be whosoever I am in my organization, howsoever many years, but I am as good as the performance I did last quarter or I have intention to do next quarter. All of us are temporary by that. Maybe my contract is that the notice period is 90 days. All of you may be 120 days or 60 days, but we are all temporary. Let's understand, in private sector, everything is temporary. Only a government of India job today is actually a real permanent job. That's point number one. Point number two, in the temporary staffing industry, सबसे बड़ा benefit क्या होता है, हम disclose starting में ही कर देते हैं. अगर आप e-commerce में आ रहे हो तो this is Diwali season hiring. You come on this date, you exit on this date on the 90th day, and on the day you are leaving, all these benefits you will get. अगर आप BFSI retail में आ रहे हो, you have 1 year. If the store does well, if the mall does well, if the footfalls there are good, you'll automatically get an appraisal, you'll get a promotion, you'll get one more letter for next year and thereafter. If you do well for 2-3 years, you'll even become a supervisor. At that stage, as a supervisor or a shop floor manager, the client may even absorb you and take you in their organization. हम ये पूरा खुलासा, ये पूरा disclosure starting में करते हैं. Having said that, ISF और ISF members के साथ सबसे बड़ा एक जो advantage है, वो ये है that consolidated among us, we work with more than 10,000 brands and companies. So if God forbid कोई एक इंडस्ट्री में स्लो डाउन है, किसी एक पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में विद इन एन इंडस्ट्री स्लो डाउन है, we are able to migrate and move people because our business runs from how many heads we payroll. So it is in our business interest that people should not reduce and they should keep getting added. So I'll give you another example. हमारी इंडस्ट्री में एक इंडस्ट्री है which is the industry which works on the compressor based, which is air conditions and refrigerators. This industry peaks for 6 months in the year from January to June. Now we know for a matter of fact कि जून के बाद एसीज नहीं बिकेंगे, किसी पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में नहीं बिकेंगे. तो हमारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स ही ऐसे होते हैं that we are giving you for this 6 months, but don't worry बच्चा, जैसे ही आप जून से वहां से एग्जिट कर रहे होगे, जुलाई ऑनवर्ड्स कंज्यूमर ड्यूरेबल इंडस्ट्री विल बी पिकिंग अप, मोबाइल इंडस्ट्री विल बी पिकिंग अप, बिकॉज वहां से दिवाली का पैटर्न शुरू हो जाता है. कंज्यूमर ड्यूरेबल्स, LED televisions and these things, we will repurpose and send you to it. Why would we lose a talent which is already skilled, which is already trained, we already have the credentials of that talent. So the talent also today comes because they realize कि उनको एक फादर तो पहले मिला ही था जो उनका एम्प्लॉयर है, अब उनको फादर के साथ ग्रैंडफादर भी मिल गया. तो अगर पॉकेट मनी की कमी होगी, दोनों में से एक तो दे ही देगा.
And
So
what
I
is
think
your
that's the
recruitment projections for 2023-24?
We are currently run rating at about 16% growth for this year, and prior to COVID, if you take away the anomaly of that 1 year when we had a growth of only 3.6%, and last year when we had a boom after that at 21.9% growth, we see that we will be able to stabilize very effectively for a long period of time at this sweet spot of double digits. We would want to be closer to 20, but anything around 15-16% is a very, very healthy growth for an industry of our size, because at 1.4 million, even 16% every year means we are adding 2 lakh more new jobs. We have to backfill the existing people who resign and retire, but we are also adding new jobs. So that's our visibility. Like I said, as a federation, we, unlike companies, so as our day job, all three of us will be worried about this month, next quarter, this financial year, because we have to show performance there. But as our Indian Staffing Federation hat that we wear, we look more long term. We look at what are 5 year, what are 10 year, and which is why we are in East this time. We used to traditionally do this conference either in Delhi or in Mumbai or in Bangalore. We realize that the work which is happening in East, in West Bengal, the amount of talent supply which is available here, the amount of new industry which is planning to come here, this is the place to showcase to employers and to tell employers that you are taking the talent of East to other states, but now is the time for employers to come here and give local jobs. So I hope we've made a beginning.
Sure.
Just to add to that point, I think the latest EPFO data. Sure, I think somebody's.
Yeah, that's Mini from.
Yeah, Vinny.
Minnie, go ahead. Is that you?
Yeah, it is me, Rohit. Hi.
Hi, Minnie.
Yeah. Yeah, you said the major reason for the current downsizing or the right sizing was the overhiring companies have gone ahead and done during the time of the pandemic. Yeah, agree. But now there is so much of resistance and the pressures. Most of the companies are talking, and big companies are already letting go of large number of people, all leading tech companies in the world. And I think a lot of the Indian companies are also very cautious. Last time when we met them in the Q3, and nobody has actually told us they're going ahead and hiring. They have not given any hiring projections which they would do earlier. So all these things are actually not changing any